Go live. Live. Greetings in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Today, we'll be talking about spiritual densities as taught by the Confederation of Planets. We'll cover the structure of spiritual evolution. Why ascend to orgasmic higher densities? How does density ascension work, and what are the densities? Bill will now do an intro, and then we'll get to the content. Go ahead, Bill.
Hello, we welcome you to this Law of One instruction effort in the love and light of the one infinite creator. It is our desire to serve through this exercise. The topic we are introducing and covering today is density. We are grateful for those who listen to our attempt to teach. We are grateful you can be with us on this journey of learning, growing, and spiritually evolving. We are seekers of the light and truth, engaging the material produced by the channelers of LL Research who have been receiving luminary information for over 60 years. We thank those of LL Research who have channeled and continue to channel and produce spiritual information to this day. We thank all of those who serve and work at LL Research. We thank those entities of the Confederation of Planets in the service of the one infinite creator that provide the information we wish to discuss. We are attempting to teach, learn a topic as a social memory complex. The phrases teach, learn, and social memory complex are Confederation terminology. This means we desire to teach a topic as a unified group. We, the teachers, will learn, and as people learn, or learn teach in Confederation terminology, those that learn from the teachers will teach those who they are learning from. Perhaps our attempt to explain this material from our unique perspective may help others have a clearer understanding of the discussed topic. We are grateful to have the opportunity to be in a position of teaching and learning. At this point, we wish to make it clear that we are not experts or authorities on any such topic we cover, and we are not infallible on what we have to say. We would ask that you use your own discrimination to determine whether the words and concepts we share with you have value in your spiritual journey at this time. If there are any that do not, we would ask you to lay them aside and think not a second thought about them, and use only the words and concepts that speak to your heart, that speak to your journey that you are on now, as we do not wish to be a stumbling block in your seeking. Thank you for being with us here. We will start with me, Bill, on the topic of density. And I'm starting with what is a density? And this comes from the frequently asked questions from LL Research. A density is one of seven or eight, depending on the perspective, dimensions, levels, or cycles of evolution in an octave of experience. So it's a dimension, level, or cycle. It is called a density because each successive level is more densely packed with light. As with notes on a musical scale, 7 densities are grouped together into an octave, where the 8th density begins the first density of the next octave, thus repeating infinitely. Designed by the logos, every density of experience offers its own set of lessons and parameters that must be learned and understood in order to cross the threshold and graduate from one density to the next. Each density completes its cycle according to the predetermined clock-like rhythms of intelligent energy. The alternative term for density may be dimension, as Ross seemed to use them somewhat interchangeably, but there may be subtle differences between the two terms. What density are we in now? The present, we're in 3rd density now. It's a short density, lasts for 75,000 years, and it's designed for one overriding purpose, to make the choice of how we will love and serve and seek the Creator. And the choice of the two paths between service to others and service to self. And if this choice is successfully made in the course of 3rd density experience, then come time, the entity may graduate or harvest as the sources call it, into the next density of evolution, the fourth density, which they call love and understanding. And I'm going to read one more thing, and it's from the raw contact 16.51. And the questioner asks, could you define the word density as we have been using it to give us a little greater idea of the concept of this term when used by you? And Ra answers and says, the term density is what you would call mathematical one. The closest analogy is that of music, whereby after 7 notes on your Western type of scale, if you will, the eighth note begins a new octave. Within your great octave of existence, which we share with you, there are 7 octaves or densities, where within each density there are 7 sub-densities, within each sub-density 7 sub-sub-densities, and so on infinitely. So just from that, we see that basically a density is a dimension, a level, or a cycle of evolution in an octave. On to you, Josh.
Thank you for sharing that very helpful information, Bill. For my part, I'm going to share a few diagrams that outline the progression or path or blueprint of the densities of evolution. So you should all see my screen now. So both of these images tell the same story. So the densities, as Bill mentioned, there are 7 densities within an octave, the octave making the 8th, hence octave. And the first density and the 8th density are one and the same. So the culmination of the end of the octave of the 8th density begins all of that begins the first density, which is the density of consciousness. And in our octave, the density of consciousness is the elements: earth, fire, water, and air. According to the Confederation material, that lasts 1.8 billion years. Then once the next density is the density of awareness, which is incorporated of plants and animals, which lasts 4.6 billion years. The next density is third, which is where we are. And to get from second to third, a great example is pets. We are self-aware. So once the first density, minerals and water and so on, become aware, and they're in second density, then to become self-aware, become third density, just like having a pet you love. It learns its name. You give it love, it gives you love. It becomes aware of self and not just part of the mass species, mass mind of the species. It becomes individuated. And third density here, as we've mentioned, is density of choice, to choose if you're service to others or service to self, positive or negative polarity. Once you've met the criteria of service to others or service to self, as you can see, it's 51% STO, 95% STS, and you become harvestable, then you go on to fourth density. Now in fourth density is the first one with the 2 polarities distinctly split here, as you can see. And that's the density of love. You're in lighter bodies with denser consciousness. In the fourth density is what takes place, thought wars, not physical destruction like we have, but back and forth between the positive and negative and thought forms. And they're learning the lessons of love. Fifth density, density of wisdom. And you're in light bodies. Sixth density is the density of unity of love and wisdom, to balance the lessons of love and the lessons of wisdom for unity. And here, as you can see in the diagram, because it is unity, the service to self or STS path midway through joins and unifies. They realize that's the only way to the creator to further their evolution. Seventh density is a dimension of foreverness, and you just approach closer and closer the unity, the singularity of the one infinite creator. In seventh density, they can step back to help the teach the entities in sixth density, which are the higher selves of densities down at third density and so on, still being service to others, and seventh density is only service to others. And then from there, all unifies, all comes together. And the eighth density you could think of as like the black hole on one octave, where all of creation comes to one finite point. And then on the next octave, first density is the Big Bang, where everything explodes into a manifestation of, starting off as elements in the atomic kind of level. So that's what I have to share here with these charts. Please go ahead, Andrii.
Okay, so here I'm gonna share my screen too here, and there we go. So why ascend to higher densities? And the idea is, if you are tired of kind of the rigmarole of some people being mean to you and some people being nice to you in third density, and then because that's how third density is, because it's about making the choice. If you're not tired of it and you like it, then then you don't want to. But there is another benefit, and that is that there is greater amounts of joy and love. And here I'm going to read the relevant quote. Okay. So from 2018-04-07, when you experience that which you call the orgasmic release of the energies of sexual expression, you are experiencing that which is the steady state for many higher density entities. For as one moves into greater and greater union with the one creator, that which is experienced resembles what you call the orgasm in the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical levels of the energy expression and experience. That orgasmic release is but a hint, my brother, of that which awaits each seeking soul that is able to make the graduation into the higher densities, beginning with your fourth density that is now available to planet Earth. Thus, this hint is that which has suffered greatly in its being perceived by Earth's population as being tainted, reserved only for certain entities, and made into an object of desire for itself only. We can assure you, there is more to come, pun intended. And so you see, by ascending into higher densities, you do have more love and more joy, and that doesn't mean that you can't go back, because say for instance in the sixth density there's a lot of incarnating into third density bodies for spiritual growth, and fourth density wanderers exist, and fifth density wanderers as well. Now, I wanted to also cover how does one ascend to the densities. So the main aspect, we covered it in the last session about the choice, and that was about so say for instance you're on the service to others path, you've been working on cultivating your heart and all that. Okay, so I have another image in relation to that, and it is basically when you may have heard from near-death experiences that people see a light. And so here's a quote from 2000, November 19th. The light along this path is most fastidiously guarded by entities which are extremely close to the one great original thought, yet which still have some individuality. These are what we would call seventh density entities. They make absolute sure that the boundaries between the densities of the third and fourth light are precisely accurate, and the higher densities as well along this path are fastidiously accurately observed. The consciousness then, without seeing any boundaries or partitions in this light, is asked to walk along the path of light. When the entity gets to the place where the light is too much to bear, then that entity stops. The fullest amount of light that the entity can enjoy and work with defines the next density of that entity's experience. If it is third density, that entity will continue in third density. If it is fourth density, that entity will move into the inner planes of a fourth density planet and prepare to start a cycle of fourth density experience there. If the entity stops in fifth or sixth density, then that has become the native density of that entity, for that is the place that that entity can enjoy an experience of incarnation the most and can get the most out of it. And now, another quote that's related to this is what is that light? Okay, so this is the quote. It's from session 51 of the Law of One. The third group watching over this process is that group you call the guardians. This group is from the octave above our own and serves in this manner as light bringers. These guardians provide the precise emissions of light love in the exquisitely fastidious dissemination of discrimination, so that the precise light love vibration of each entity may be ascertained. And so those, in my understanding, are eighth density entities. And I think I will let someone else go now. How am I doing for time, Josh? Or is there time for another quote? Josh, you're muted.
Bill, if you have something now.
Oh,
Bill?
okay.
Yeah, let me. I'm going to go into basically some characteristics of what these densities are. In Josh's visual aids, you saw some of them, and I'm going to go into this February 2008, February 10, 2008 quote from Kuo. And in this quote, it's talking about kind of the creation. So it says, this and every octave begins and ends in the Godhead principle of intelligent infinity, resting utterly asleep in the oneness of all. The vibration of love is all that there is, and yet it is not known to itself, for it is resting. Just as your heart for one instant between each heartbeat is at rest, so is the Creator's heart at rest between creations or between octaves. So in the frequently asked questions, it was explained that the densities are all in these octaves. And then here we find out that the octave begins and ends in the Godhead principle of intelligent infinity, resting. And so at the beginning, and the quote goes on, at the beginning of the octave, which you are a part, the Creator was resting in timelessness and spacelessness. And these are all kind of topics unto themselves. By the agency of the first distortion of the Law of One, free will, which is another topic, the Creator decided again to know itself. And we've covered that topic. And so it became potentiated in a thought. So when the Creator decided to know itself, and it created this thought to know itself, and this thought, and that one great original thought is love, and love in its turn created light and sent it forth to manifest in the creation and all of its stupendly infinite systems of illusion. And so your solar system and your planet and yourself were created. So this is right there, they're kind of talking about first density, where the solar system, the planet, and yourself were created. And then in the middle of first density, timelessness began to evolve into time and space. The vibrations that were in chaos began to organize into roughly circular or elliptical forms, creating the coalescing suns, which in turn threw off material that coalesced into planets. And so the creation of the Father was born as part of first density. So the whole way the stars are made, and then the stars blowing up and creating the planets, this is all astronomy theories too. Later in first density came the organization of this coalescing mass that we call a planet into earth and water, so that the elements might have distinct places and habitations within second density. Then the creation further developed the energies from that which had no movements, such as rocks and water and so forth, which may be moved but have no voluntary or independent movement of their own, into life forms which had movement. So we're talking about uh, the first, the rocks and the forms, and they're going from one form into a second density. And the movement naturally was the movement towards the light and the love of the one infinite creator, which calls all things at all times. Yet these animals and plants that were second density had no sense of themselves. They had no veil. That is, they knew all that there was to know. So the creatures in second density have no veil. They knew that they were one with everything. They knew that destiny lay in harmony and cooperation. Yet, other than turning to the light and seeking sources of light, second density entities did not experience that self awareness that makes people self conscious or question their motives or their motions. If you have known second density entities, such as your pets, you know that they do not question what is occurring to them, but rather adapt to it. So, right there, we see the characteristics of second density is lack of self awareness, and there's no veil, and they know they're in harmony with everything. And, like Josh brought up in his diagram, or the pictures he said, he talked about second density being pets. And then after that, we get into third density, it lasts 75,000 years. And then this is where we choose the manner to progress. And built into third density life, we have our physical form. We got to interact with people. We uh, just to perpetuate the species. You form relationships, and then the conflict, or the hints, or they say the hints concerning service to self versus service to others are built into the human being's very nature. And then so we get to choose which way we want to go. And one thing they said really interesting in this quote, it says that, and this is, I'm talking about the characteristics of third density, which is a topic unto itself. But it says you may do in 50 years or 20 years or even 5 years in third density, which would take us 1,000,000 years to do, because of the fact that we see the whole picture. We understand all that there is to understand in terms of the Creator's plan for us. Therefore, it is an open book test, and that which we learn in painfully slow increments. And so, right there, we see in third density, it's quick and fast, and we learn things really, really fast. And that's a really good characteristic of third density. And on to, oh yeah, Josh, you're up.
Yep. Thank you again, Bill, for that. Great explanations there. Again, I'm going to share my screen. Yep, should see it. So want to go back. I forgot to mention that I want to give a disclaimer that these diagrams I've shared and I'm sharing, they were created by others based on their own interpretation of Confederation material that Bill and Andrii were sharing direct quotes from. So these diagrams aren't drawn by the Confederation or L&L research, just so you're clear on that. Here on this one, I just want to give a quick point out real quick. In our third density experience of space-time, space is 3 dimensions and time is that 4th dimension. So we can literally move forward, back, up, down, left, right, XYZ plane, degrees of freedom in space. But we can't really easily physically move in time, right? It just happens to us. For the higher densities, it's inverted. If you can imagine the inverse, they can move any dimension of time and they're kind of subjected to space, but they can space-time and time-space are inverted of each other. And I want to mention here, they list the durations of the major cycles of the densities. So in third density, we're in the end of our major cycle. And here it's somewhere around 75 or 77,000 years. A second density was 4.6 billion years. First was 1.8 billion. And sorry, jumping around. Fourth is 30 million. So just to give you a scale. And I know fifth is also in the millions. Not sure why it's not listed. And here I want to point out between third and fourth on this diagram, you see the steps of light that the quote was read before. I think Andrii was reading it, where before your next incarnation, you walk down that path, and however much light you could take is where you drop in your next incarnation with density. And onto this diagram here. Again, it's going through the densities. It gives a little bit more examples, more descriptive. So the first density of beingness or consciousness, like we mentioned. So here's that interesting part. So mineral and water are learning from wind and fire, the awareness of being, because wind and fire are in motion. Mineral and water aren't naturally moving. So they are acting upon each other, which creates that progress. You could think of it as the atomic body scale. And again, here they say 2 billion years cycle. Second density, they're saying growth, like awareness, autonomous life from organisms, plants to animals, develops awareness of self through interaction with the environment. For example, a human and their pet. That's probably the fastest way to evolve a second density. They have a chemical body, meaning they're more complex than a first density. And a 4.6 billion year cycle, incarnation of 1 to 200 years they give. Obviously, some animals could live longer, some trees live longer. But I guess that's the middle ground. Third density, where we are now self-aware, evolved from second density. That's where we are. Now we have the veil. Third density is the main, if not only density with the veil, where your subconscious is not accessible to the conscious, which is a purpose to let us choose polarity, make the choice. And also we have a physical chemical body, 75,000 year major cycle. I think there was a typo on the last one. Incarnation, it says 30 to 900 years. In the rock contact, there's a quote where it says like the optimal incarnational period of our third density body complex, according to the logos, could be 900 years. And then fourth density, love. Jesus is the archetype of fourth density. You could think about that kind of level. In fourth density, you learn the lessons of light and wisdom. Our planet Earth, Mother Earth, and Gaia, has been in fourth density vibration since 2012. We're catching up, which is why there's a lot of change, because she's in fourth, we're in third, so we're coming together. Has a chemicals and light body, and it's a 30 million year cycle, and incarnation lasts up to 90,000 years, to give you a sense of the difference there. And fifth density, light wisdom. So you can see here Buddha as the archetype. Right? Buddha is more about wisdom. Jesus is more about love in general, archetypically. In fifth density, you're working toward balancing love and light wisdom. Learn how to serve without martyrdom. Like Jesus didn't have the wisdom control, rather the love that put him toward martyrdom. Love unbalanced by wisdom led to martyrdom or self-sacrifice. Your body is pure light. in fifth density. And again, 50 million year cycle, immortal incarnation, it says. Time isn't really, the incarnated portion of yourself isn't subject to a limit. Again, here, sixth density is the unity of the love and the wisdom, everything coming together, the unity of the positive and the negative. So think about archangels. And the sixth density is where your higher self is located, which is you from the future. So in sixth density entity will turn backwards in time to serve its past selves as the higher self of them. And you're learning the lessons of foreverness, eternity. Body's pure light, 75 million year cycle, again, immortal. Seventh density, which is the gateway. Seventh density is one with all, having no memory, no identity, no past or future, but existing in the all. Serves as teachers to the higher selves in sixth density. 1 foot in time and 1 foot in eternity. Enters a black hole at the end of seventh density. So basically, right there, right on the cusp, time doesn't really exist. Everything's infinite and about to transition to that singularity point, octave point. And then eighth / first, just like in music, on your piano, you see the white keys and black keys, you see it's a repeating pattern. Every repeat is the next octave up, higher frequency, higher vibration. Once the past octave or past entire universe, right, has absorbed into itself through the black hole of the great central sun or logos, a new octave begins. This octave starts then with a big bang coming out of a white hole, expanding space-time. The next octave universe is unfathomable. So there is a big horizon that you can't, from the lower density, you can't perceive anything from the lower octave, you can't perceive anything from the octave above directly, for sure. So there's a big kind of like memory wipe. There are what you can call like artifacts or archetypes that carry over the logoi, next logo. So the next octave does carry over kind of like lessons and things from the previous octave. But all of everything of history, of energy and mass and light and consciousness goes into a singularity, from infinity to a point, and then big bang from a point to infinity from the octave. All the atoms, hydrogen, helium, carbon, so on, forming the whole universe, all the nebulae forming planets and stars, etc. And then evolution proceeds. I'd like to pass it over to Andrii.
All right. Yeah. So I'd like to continue a little bit here. And what happens to people who graduate from third to fourth on Earth in this cycle? And that is a good question. I have basically what's happened historically. There's different examples, but for wanderers, it's more complicated because they're from somewhere else, so they might go back where they are, or they may continue to incarnate. But so some people, however, who went through the degrees, first density, second density, third density here on Earth, a lot of them choose to stay in the spiritual realm afterwards. Though so some of them, like Francis of Assisi, became more like bodhisattvas. So this is a picture here of potentially some of these, at least, are ascended masters. And I have a quote here, regarding ascended masters from 1989, October 8. let us speak about the inner planes masters, so called. These are entities which have personally evolved to be harvestable to fourth density, who have instead chosen to remain discarnate and to turn back and aid those of third density. These entities are creatures of your illusion, which have moved to larger life and are able to see, shall we say, the tree of consciousness down to its roots and up to its loftiest branches. They are out of the illusion, but they have not had experience of the higher densities by working with the social memory complex. It is, shall we say, a choice. There are service to others and service to self entities within your inner planes. There are very wise ones within your inner planes. They have done very, very difficult work, and they are to be commended. However, they have halted their own learning process, turning back to aid, knowing only that which has been realized within the incarnation that makes the entity, at the time of the physical death, able to move into the fourth density light. And this so while they're great, and often they are like our spirit guides and things like that, and they love us more than they love themselves, but their abilities are limited by the fact that they've only been on Earth, and they just don't know, what goes on outside of here. And so they can give you, they can relate their personal experience here on Earth, and maybe some of what they learned in the spirit world. But that's one of the reasons that we get a lot of our information from the Confederation of Planets, because they have gone beyond that, and they've gone many, millions or billions of years beyond that, and they've traveled throughout, at least the solar system, in the case of Ra, but in Latwi and Hatan, they're from other solar systems, and but there's another option, which is the dual activated. And so here's a quote from 2008, September 27. However, the vast majority of those who have graduated from third density planet Earth have chosen to move into incarnation in dual activated third density, fourth density bodies. They are wired for both densities, but are governed in third density by the third density portion of their wiring, so that they are physically third density entities. And so a lot of the kind of this is another option, and it actually has only appeared recently. And you could say, in a way, that this is a fulfillment of the revelation, where people come back to life at the end of times. And this is kind of the end of times, where everyone who has been incarnated on Earth, that wants to be here at this time, is incarnate, as assuming they have the seniority of vibration, and all those things, that they're close enough to harvestability. And so they come back, and they have a third density body. So physically, they are no different from a regular, just pure third density person, but their mind can access fourth density information. And examples of bodhisattvas are, for example, like the Dalai Lama, or there's several spiritual traditions, but the main spiritual tradition that I'm aware of, where there's reincarnated people who come back to help others, it's called the Tulku tradition in Tibetan Buddhism. And so the Dalai Lama and the Karmapa, and there's really over 1,000 of these various lamas who have achieved this kind of heart activation, and then chosen to continue reincarnating to help others. All right. And then I know Josh covered the durations of the densities quite well, but I did want to add some clarifying points, that at least in my understanding, in fourth density, we still have physical bodies, and so there is still physical conflict. There's very little in the service to others, but there's much more in the service to self worlds. Though at times the service to self worlds, try to invade the service to others ones, and the service to other people have to defend themselves, and they do. And I've read accounts of this in the Dolores canon material and stuff, where they really don't want to do it, but just for the sake of having a continued physical existence, they do defend themselves. And it's only in fifth density. In fifth density, they have light bodies, and they're shapeshifters. They can shift their shape, like the service to self versions would be the reptilian shapeshifters, and the service to others would be kind of the Palladians, or they look like humans. They just basically appear to people, however, kind of like a relative of theirs. They can appear, their true form is as a light, as an oblong light form, but they will appear to you in a way that you find acceptable. But generally, and another point was the regarding the time space. And right now the fourth and fifth densities that interact with us are interacting through time space, so as not to interfere with our free will, and that kind of thing. But later on, when we incarnate in fourth density, we will have space-time experience, much like we have now, just with more spirituality going on. And then I also wanted to mention that there are alternative, like the Confederation Planet is a great source of information, but they are not the end all and be all of information. They're not a dogma. They're a kind of a philosophy, and they say in every session that that there's other ways of looking at things, and take what resonates, and don't what doesn't. So for example, in my understanding, like many people believe there's more than 7 chakras, and you don't necessarily have to break it up into octaves of 8. You could break it up into like other numbers, like a lot of mathematicians like the number 6, for example. And so we covered before that those people that are providing that light are the 8th density. And so if you go by that 12 chakra system, then your 8th chakra is kind of a local, like the space around you, and then the 9th chakra is the planet, and then the 10th chakra is the solar system, and the 11th chakra is the galaxy, and the 12th chakra is the universe. And so if you take that analogy, then just by pure logic, so 7th density, you're working on timelines and things like that. And then after that, the 8th densities, soul, which has multiple possible jobs, like providing that light, or possibly becoming an oversoul for a group of animals. And so that is also a possibility to do. And here I would just have this image of the chakras. All right. And I believe that's all I got here. So what are we doing next, Josh?
At this point, I'd like to go around and we'll all take turns to kind of summarize or give your definition of densities in, a definition length, 2 to 3
Well,
sentences.
I thought we were gonna, because I got a lot of I know Andrii brought up a lot of quotes and stuff that were completely off topic. When he's talking about, he's got the path of light, graduation of densities, the 8 entity densities, and then the idea of 4th density being one of physical conflict. I don't buy that at all.
Okay. Well, I could read the quote if you want. I mean, it's
well. Let me read.
Okay.
Let me read Raw Contact 16.51, where it says that which 4th density is not. It says it is not of disharmony within self. It is not of disharmony within people. It is not within limits of possibility to cause disharmony in any way. And so you're talking about that they can have conflict in fourth density, but here Ra is saying you can't have it. It's not within limits of possibility to cause disharmony in any way. That's for the service to self people. And so I would have to completely disagree with that. And then
service to others.
Yeah, and then when you're going into Dolores Cannon and these other, the Tibetans and stuff, this is all just we wanted people to know that this is all stuff outside of the Confederation philosophy. And other topics he brought up were options for those who did graduate, seniority of vibration, dual activated entities. These are all, you can say they kind of have something to do with density, but they're all different topics. And so he brought up a whole lot of different topics. Just want people to be aware of that. And then the last thing I would say is the idea of the eighth density, the seventh to eighth density or whatever. It's a big bang or whatever. That's all, we don't know. That's all theory and stuff. We don't know exactly how that happens, except that there is something else that's out there, at least from my viewpoint. So there's lots of topics that were hit on that's kind of a little off what a density kind of is.
There's lots and lots of examples where they talk about how the fourth densities have conflict and the fifth densities do not. And that's one of the reasons they talk about, don't take it dogmatically, because if we read into one part, then we see some other contradicts it and all that. Anyways, but here, 2009, January 24th. Gradually, as fourth density progresses for each of those in the fight, there comes a time of epiphany when it is seen that the war is unnecessary. And finally, that entity lays down his sword and moves ahead, rejoicing. So the fourth density entities in the beginning, they're still transitioning from third density. Don't become completely different people right away. There's a transition, even with the bodies. So, our bodies start out as these kind of more or less regular, whatever it was before in third density or second density, and then they gradually transition more to like gray aliens, and then by fifth density they're just balls of light.
Yeah,
that's my understanding.
And that's all yeah,
and that's all density.
Viewpoint.
It's all density. Yeah. All right.
Well,
so
it's progression through densities.
Yes, exactly. So Josh, did you want to give your summary of densities then?
Sure. I should have prepared something. So I would define densities as levels of experience of spiritual evolution from beginning to end. I know it's very vague, but it's hard to put it all into a definition. What do you guys think on that topic, on that explanation there?
I like it.
Well, yeah, I see a density. It's pretty straightforward. It's a dimension. It's a level, a cycle of evolution in an octave experience, and density comes from obviously dense because each level has more. The higher you go up in density, the more light that is there. And then you hit on the little bit of the graduation from density to density, and that means you can go from density to density when you can absorb the light at that density.
Yep. Yeah. So my understanding of density is that it is kind of they're talking about the density of the love and light of the one infinite creator. and that it's kind of like, I guess at a first density it's not very much, they're just kind of figuring things out, and second density it's a little more, and then fourth density it's more, and then each level of this spiritual progress, as Josh was saying, it just becomes more intense with light. And so a person who's not ready for that light, it would be just like too much. It would be like going into an over bright room, and it was just too much light. And so you want to be at those densities where you're comfortable with the level of lighting of God. Yeah, and that's related to that. I know a lot of people have mentioned that as we're progressing from third density to fourth density, there's, because of all of the extra light of God, of the one infinite creator, it's becoming much harder for people to hide things, and so a lot of things are becoming revealed, like conspiracies and whatever are turning out to be true, and all that other thing, and that is part of this spiritual increase in the density of love light of God. Okay. All right. So do you have a comment on that, or should we go to outros? Josh? No? You don't have a comment?
No,
Okay, so or Bill, you want to go to outro then?
Yep. Here we go. We now end this session. We are grateful for the audience. We hope this exercise will give one knowledge that will help one see the love in the moment, open the heart more, and more clearly see the unity of all. We have attempted to learn a topic as a social memory complex, which is a very important concept to us because we resonate with the Confederation philosophy and believe we has humanity forming and becoming a social memory complex from planet Earth. We thank those at LL Research, and we thank the Confederation. If you wish to support those at LL Research, and we would encourage such support, you can go to their website at llresearch.org to donate and or buy their books and other material. However, all LL Research material is free at their website. LL Research has given us a great blessing making their material free and easily accessible, including their fantastic new search engine, which those at LL Research have worked so hard to produce. Once again, we thank you all for viewing this video and know that we love you. At this time, we leave you as we found you in the love and light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite creator. Adonai Vasu Baragas.